Greetings, all you ducklings out there. I'm Duuz-Diz-Din coming at you with another DuckTales 2017 episode review. This time it's Season 2's Episode 10 titled The 87-Cent Solution. I love that. It sounds so much like alliteration, but it actually isn't. Beautiful. Mwah, mwah. Masterpiece. Now, we open up with the fact that Scrooge is sick of all things, and naturally, like most curmudgeon old men, he is completely not willing to believe Huey and just take some time to rest and get better. He just feels that all he needs is a good dip in his money bin and he'll be good as new. We also see that I think it's Manfred, the headless horse, is actually trying to dispose of various junk inventions, I guess, from Gearloose's lab. Although McDuck just kind of brushes him off, thinking that he's talking about Scrooge trying, like the fact that Scrooge is sick. He's, Manny's just kind of trying to get one a bit of information, and Scrooge thinks he's talking about something else with his clopping. That means something completely different in certain circles. So Scrooge goes in to go take a little dip in his money, but when he dives in, he ends up finding out that he is missing money from his bin. He has been robbed. Now, on the other side of this, we see that Flintheart Glomgold is with Owlsley, his partner, I guess, in the company, considering how high up she is in the company and how much, despite the fact that Glomgold Tech owns his company, she seems to have a lot more leeway, especially in terms of what Glomgold does. But I actually love Owlson. She keeps him in line for the most part, but she's trying her best to get Glomgold to just join up with Scrooge so they can properly help out for this charity that she has going. And it's even gotten to the point where she's created an anagram that, is just to kind of keep Glomgold from just scheming or doing anything devious today. She's trying her best to just keep everyone on task, but especially Glomgold, as she usually finds that Scrooge is a little bit more manageable in this situation, which is immediately sidelined by the fact that in comes Scrooge blaming Glomgold for stealing his money without any real proof. Now, naturally, Glomgold immediately admits to it, despite the fact that he has no idea what Scrooge is talking about. And even Owlsley comments on the fact that Scrooge seems to be a little bit more manic than usual today, like he's almost crazy to a certain degree. But Scrooge is unwilling to listen to it and has Manny escort the two of them out. And he gets his best people on the job of hunting down his lost cash. We see the whole entire setup for the lockdown of the money bin, where Gyro shows off the security system using Donald as a guinea pig. Man, Donald really gets the, crappy end of the stick in terms of what goes on in this episode. We also see that Gizmo Duck is on the scene and actually gives Scrooge a rundown of all the various villains that Scrooge has gone up against. Glomgold was in his tower at the time, or was in the boardroom meeting room at the time. Mark Beeks was at Coachella, I think they said, which is actually very topical because when this episode aired, I think Coachella was around that time. So that took me off guard. Ma Beagley was somewhere specific, I don't remember, and we come to find out Magica the Spell's location is still very much unknown. But I think Scrooge doesn't really buy into, believing that Magica stole from him, because if it was Magica, he'd know it was Magica. She would immediately make it known that she was involved. And as Louis comes busting in, worried about what he feels is his inheritance, Scrooge claims that what was stolen was a whole 87 cents. Which everyone just kind of like, really? That's it? Really? But Scrooge's reasoning for this is the belief that if someone managed to get that little, how long before they get more and more and more and more? So, I mean, I guess that makes a certain degree of sense. If someone's just still kind of out there, just running around, getting little bits of his money here and there, how long before he's run dry before he even realizes it? And when Huey asks, it's just like, you can't possibly know that, truly. The only way you know that is if you counted every cent in the bin, which Scrooge immediately has them do. But, as Huey is less and less inclined to believe Scrooge, Webby's still trying her best to kind of get everyone on board of just, well, he's Scrooge. He's always on top of things. He's never truly out of sync like this. There has to be a reasonable explanation for why he's doing this. That doesn't, bring his sanity into question. But when Huey looks up that, a possible disease, he actually finds a listing on gold fever, something that could actually be fatal if exposed to prolonged exposure to gold. And once we see that Scrooge has completely locked down the money bin in every way, shape, or form, Huey just completely starts gearing up for the eventual disease. And with the broadcast that Scrooge puts out for a basically, a finder's fee for whoever stole his 87 cents of $2 million, and even Louis starts to kind of think that Scrooge has gone off the deep end, especially when he starts calling out, getting ready for battle preparations, saying that whoever has been going around, stealing his 87 cents has also stolen his spats, been licking his stuff, all these weird outlandish claims, and he calls the, person Chester, for some reason. This evil being that he can't seem to see, but just seems to be wherever, just around, just taunting him, flaunting everything in his face. And he actually ends up seeing it further down the bridge to the money bin, but no one else can spot this creature. But Scrooge still has Gizmo fire upon nothing, basically. Gizmo's rockets just go all over the place, end up crashing into the sun chaser who was observing from the skies. Launchpad ends up going down, and and Gizmo is actually unable to get the propeller so he can fly up and stop the sun chaser open. For some reason, that latch is stuck for some reason, and the sun chaser ends up careening towards Dewey, of all people, as he was trying to go in and try to chase down this Chester person. But Dewey is just barely saved by Gizmo just rushing in and getting him out of harm's way. But the news has already gotten wind of everything that went down on the bridge to the money bin, and because of this, various people are starting to think that Scrooge has just completely lost his marbles. He's completely off his rocker, and because of this, a lot of people are starting to uninvest in Scrooge McDuck's businesses and just pull out and actually going with Glomgold instead. And Glomgold's just kind of happy about this, but Allison is actually surprised that it seems like Glomgold is the more stable of the two. Meanwhile, Gizmo calls in Scrooge to meet with an intruder, but in actuality, it's more of an intervention, where we see that various other, members of Scrooge's team are starting to lose faith in him, including Dewey, because, well, once you almost get run over by a plane, there's no real going back from that. But Webby is still doing her best to try to believe in Scrooge. She doesn't want to completely buy into the thought that he might actually be crazy. But, he's starting to look kind of emancipated. His clothes aren't fitting for some reason. And it just seems like he's losing himself to this whole situation. But seeing that everyone is kind of seems to be turning against him, he decides to bring him in on his theory. And it's just this web, that creates this kind of outline that almost looks like a person in a devil mask. Saying that this creature, Chester, has been warping in and out of reality, licking his stuff, stretching out all of his clothes, he's the one who stole the money from him, and just been going around doing all these practical jokes and pranks, and just being a bit of an imp. He calls it a, magical imp who's just been running around for the most part. And with this explanation, even Webby kind of just backs down for the most part. She still wants to believe in Scrooge. She still wants to validate his opinion, but she still feels that there might just be something wrong with Scrooge in the end. But Scrooge is unwavering in his belief, and he ultimately wants to go diving into this money bin just to count it himself. But Huey, still believing in the gold fever, doesn't want Scrooge to dive in on the possibility that he might die from it. But as everyone tries to stop him, Scrooge manages to fight them all off and gets ready to dive in. And the next thing we know, we're hearing a news report about how Glomgold Industry has actually just continued to be on the rise, to the point of making Glomgold the richest duck in Duckburg, if not the world. And with this great success over Scrooge, that means he wins the bet from episodes ago, and he will take over Scrooge's entire industry at the end. However, we then hear news that Scrooge did it. He dived in, apparently succumbed to gold fever, and perished as a result of it. And we end up seeing Scrooge's funeral. Everyone shows up. I guess everyone, like most of the people in Duckburg, which should clue you in on a few things. But then we have Glomgold enter, dancing to, of all things, All I Do Is Win, which I think is by T-Pain. But, that took me off guard, because when I first heard that, I'm just like, is this real? Is this reality? Just Glomgold dancing, just making it rain cash, and he even tries to get up on Scrooge's casket to just dance and throw it in his face, and I'm just like, man, Glomgold, you have absolutely no tact, bro. But, Owlson is still there, and she manages to rein in Glomgold with a lollipop. And Huey delivers Scrooge's eulogy, just saying that ultimately it was the disease that took Scrooge. Despite what Scrooge thought, there could have in no way be any plan or mission to outdo him or anything like that. No kind of conspiracy, because there was no way that something would be this devious, that, overblown, that over the top, that brilliant to bring Scrooge down in this way. And naturally, as if on cue, Glomgold immediately admits to being the one who did this to Scrooge with this time device that he has in his hands. And then he just lays out his entire plan, and the entire event of what happened from start to finish. That when Manny was disposing of Gyro's old equipment, the watch, I think one of the watches that we saw Glomgold working in the previous episode, Scrooge the Outlaw, the time device that that Gyra was working on, at least I think that's the same one, actually fell out to Glomgold's feet. And when he was playing around with it, he actually ended up stopping time. And in that stop time, it took Glomgold an entire year to actually figure out it was the watch, this time stopping device that had actually managed to get him into that situation. And once he had figured that out, he, immediately went in to try to steal some of Scrooge's gold. But it was just so heavy for him to just get out by himself, and it's not like he could bring anything in to the stop time to get all of that money. And at the end of it, Glomgold decided that it would be better just to kind of freak Scrooge out just by taking, what he had in his pocket when he tried to steal from Scrooge, an entire 87 cents. He even went as far as to try to, after hearing Owlson in the boardroom say that Scrooge had, gone a little crazy, gone a little awry, he decided to actually go into, of all things, Huey's Junior Woodchuck guidebook and put in the page for Gold Fever. It was not originally in there. That ends up showing off that, that Scrooge, he actually had enough information, enough knowledge on Huey to be able to go in and just alter his Junior Woodchuck guidebook. Glomgold knows what he's up against. He knows this family well enough to be able to mess with them like this. And we also end up seeing that he actually was going in and messing with Scrooge this entire time. Going in, messing with his stuff, just licking all over his stuff. He's the one who glued down Gizmo Duck's, helicopter launcher to keep him from flying to the aid. He was actually on the bridge when Scrooge spotted him, from far away, and he just did all this devious stuff. But we end up seeing the body of Scrooge rise, and it's actually Manny with the stone head of Scrooge painted. And we end up finding that one of the attendees was actually Scrooge in disguise. In reality, before Scrooge dove into the money bin, he actually started sneezing, and he had to admit to himself that he was in fact sick. And even Huey actually kind of admitted to Scrooge that he kind of believed him as well, as he noticed that the page on Gold Fever wasn't really quite in there, and Huey, who constantly keeps his guidebook safe and, very cared for, it kind of clued him into the fact that it wasn't a real page. And all of this, was brought about because Scrooge actually trusted in his family in the end, in the people around him, and that's why he was able to put one over on Glomgold. And with Glomgold's admission, it means that he had gotten all his wealth through, nefarious means, meaning that Scrooge goes back to being the most wealthy duck in Duckburg because, he had basically cheated in all of this. He cheated in all of it, so it's pretty much all null and void. If you wanted to get away with it, don't get caught, bro. And Scrooge just tells them, and this is something that has always been a thing for Glomgold, even back in the day, that Scrooge's real advantage over Glomgold, time and time again, despite the various similarities, because in the original series, in the original comics, Scrooge and Glomgold were so similar down to a T. There was no real difference, and that wasn't even intentional. They were just very similar. But the real difference was that Glomgold didn't have a family. He didn't have people who were looking out for his best interests and willing to help him out when he really needed him. And that's always just been Glomgold's downfall. He doesn't trust in anyone. He doesn't believe in anyone. He doesn't listen to anyone. He only believes and trusts in himself, and that gets him into trouble every single time. and a fight breaks out between Scrooge and Glomgold over the time device, and they end up falling out the window and freezing themselves in midair. And I love this line by Beakley when she goes in to save Scrooge, when she tells the kids, next time a situation like this happens to Scrooge and he starts going off the deep end, how about not faking Scrooge's death and just call me to help out? Which is true. If Beakley was actually there, she probably would have instantly solved this whole situation and gotten Scrooge to calm down a bit. But she saves Scrooge. Glomgold basically falls on the ladder that she uses, and for the most part it looks like Glomgold broke his spine. But Scrooge gets the last laugh on Glomgold, gets back his 87 cents, licks Glomgold's glasses just for pettiness, and walks away, saying, "Better luck next time, Glomgold." It's just a fun episode. God, I gotta tell you, when I first saw that depiction Scrooge has put up of the image of Manny using all the red tape on the photos and stuff, I originally was just like, man, that kind of looks like Glomgold wearing an imp costume like devil horns or something. But I'm just like, nah, it's just Scrooge being crazy. And of all things, that's exactly what it was. It took me so off guard because I had just completely disbelieved my own theory, and it turned out to be true. Just that shows a fantastic episode where I will know exactly where it's going, and they will completely sidetrack me to the point where I don't believe in myself, and that will actually end up being the case. I love this episode. It was fun, it was interesting, it had twists and turns that I would never have even thought of. I didn't even think the whole situation with Manny wheeling out all the junk was actually gonna come into play after we didn't really see anything of it halfway into the episode. I'm just like, okay, that was just a throwaway situation, but no, even that came into play. So there's always something deeper going on in these episodes. Always keep looking for it. That's how you know this is the successor to Gravity Falls in certain cases, or just takes those elements, because you just gotta keep looking for stuff. Yes, there's always something deeper going on. But I've gushed enough about this episode. Tell me your thoughts in the comment section below. Did you truly believe that Scrooge was crazy like I did? Or did you know that there's had to be something deeper going on? Just lay it all out on the line in the comments below. And if you liked this video, feel free to leave me a like. If you didn't, feel free to leave me a dislike and tell me what I did wrong in the comment section below so I might better myself for future videos. And how about subscribing and hitting the bell icon? That way you never miss out on another DuckTales review. And until the next video, always remember to trust your family. Bye-bye.